or on your mobile device, FLAcarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLAcarshows.com.
There isn't a fuel line.
You got something that moves? Oh, I sure have. That Pontiac GTO over there. The car of the year. Give me the keys. Oh, you'd like to go for a ride? Just give me the keys.
Yes, sir. A ride. That's the only way to tell how the GTO handles. It's really a driver's car. It's got wide track suspension. Did you notice the revolutionary new bumper on the GTO? We call it the Great One.
Get rid of him, Clyde.
You gonna take it?
Right.
How do you want to finance it?
Finance it, Clyde.
Hey, wait! This is too much! You got change coming!
Pontiac costs a lot less money than most people think. The great wide track drive is on. See your Pontiac dealer.
Set the Wayback Machine.
Yes, sir, Mr. Peabody.
Hi, this is Dave Mason, co-founder of the classic band Traffic and writer of a song which you all know called Feeling All Right. And you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Welcome, listeners. Welcome. You're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. I'm your show host, Robert. Run your computers and Google TAN Talk 1340.com, and you can see us live here in the studios in downtown Clearwater. Don't forget to check out our website, GulfstreamMotorsports.com, where you can find out all about us. And if you want to check out Nostalgic Radio and Cars, you can hear all our 12 and a half years worth of radio shows. Nicely, neatly packaged and archived. Good evening, Bobby. How are you?
I'm doing well for you to listen over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, we got a great show for you tonight. I'm going to be doing a little dialogue talking tonight. I haven't done that in a while.
Stories to tell.
Yeah, I got some cool stories.
So these are this is radio of the old days, campfire.
Campfire, yeah. Sing around the campfire.
Campfire chat. Fireside chats. Yeah.
Fireside chats, yeah.
Except
Something
nostalgic,
like nostalgic
car version.
We do have a guest coming on a little bit later in the afternoon. Yeah, later, later in the show.
4 hours ago, it was later in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to be talking about one of the upcoming events in South Florida. Now, what's going on this past weekend? We obviously had the 24-hour race. We had the Cavallino in South Florida, and this weekend we've got Cars on the 5th. It's not called that anymore. It's called the Naples Automotive Experience and the Naples car auction. And we have, the Sumter County Fairground has their 3-day extravaganza. If you're into van life, I think somewhere in Dade City, there's a van life gathering. So we probably ought to look into that, because we were thinking about doing something with that van, the little thing we got, the little Transit Connect. And so that's kind of like, people, and there's vendors there, and they're fixing those things up. Let's see, there's a bunch of stuff going on.
For all our Pasco listeners out there.
For our Pasco.
Our northern end of our listening audience.
Yeah.
You should
DCF
definitely travel out there.
Yeah. And so let's see what else is going on. And of course, last week was also, was that the third Friday of the month? Yeah, it was. So they had the Inverness Car Show downtown, and then they had the Villages car show, and we didn't go to that either. Let's see what else. Oh, and of course, our good friends over in Orlando are having the International Guitar and Music Expo, correct? And with a little luck, I don't know, maybe Marty might call in, and he's always been a great guest, and he's been on our show. That's this weekend too. It's funny because I get so preoccupied with stuff. I've actually been working on a fair amount of appraisals and diminished values lately, so I've kind of lost track of time. Plus, I'm working on my own little projects, and I do some remodeling and stuff on the side. But let me. I've been appraising some interesting cars, and I want to talk about this a little bit because I get these cars, and I'm in my mid 60s, so, and I still have some of the cars I had back in high school. One in particular is my 69 Shelby, which I took apart in 77 because my friend says, I think we should take this car apart and restore it. Well, that car got taken apart in 1977. It was a perfectly fine driver. It was a good survivor, a great driver, and I took it apart in 1977, and it's never been back together since. That's a bad thing. Right, Bobby?
Yeah, that's...
So,
not preferred.
because now it's going to cost me more to try. I've lost more in deposits of body shops and parts than what I paid for the car back in 1975, somewhere around there, 75, 76, whenever I bought it. I was going to JC at the time. And which is, for those of you that have been around here for a long time, that was St. Petersburg Junior College, which is now St. Petersburg College. It's morphed into a college. So it's an accredited for.
Well, they're all state colleges now.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes, because they have 4-year degrees.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, back then you got 2 years and you got an associate's AA, and then some of us were on the 4-year plan for the associate's degree, and then some of us never completed the 4-year associates because we turned it into 5, then sometimes 6. And then when we co-opted, went out and worked, and then came back and then decided, I don't know, Anyway, and then long story short, there's no story. Anyway,
yeah, I was wondering where that went.
Yeah,
Watch me pull a story out of my hat.
Yeah, watch me pull a story out of my
Wrong
hat.
hat.
Wrong hat. Okay. Anyway, so and I used to drive my Shelby to JC when I went there back then, and so one of these days, well, that's on my list of most important cars put together. But where I'm going with this is that recently I had to do a number of appraisals, and it bothers me because the guys are deceased, and I'm dealing with widows, and they don't know exactly, because I do the same thing. We never tell the other half what we have invested or what we have spent or what some of the stuff is, and we stash it, hide it, because it's our little thing, you know what I mean? And so when I wander, like yesterday, I went over and I looked at, I got a call. There was a Studebaker and a Dodge Polara. So I can only imagine, and the gentleman owned the cars for 12 years, and they have not been put together. So when I got there, there was stuff everywhere. The Studebaker, which was under a car cover, which happens to be, I affectionately refer to it as the Muppet Baker, because it's like a 50-51 Studebaker, the bullet nose, like they used in the Muppet movie. But anyway, it's kind of a cool car. So the body actually was in pretty decent shape. The other car that was there it was a 2-door. The other car that was there was a Dodge Polara 64. When I first walked up, in a 63, 64 kind of looked the same to me. But anyway, it was a 4. And it was a 4-door hardtop. And I thought, well, okay. But it was a deluxe model because it had all the trim on it. It had really nice interior on the inside, or what was once a nice interior, and it had all the trim on the outside. One half of the car was original, kind of a 2-tone color, and the other side was painted plum crazy. And so when we raised the hood, there was a big block under it, and I figured there would probably be, maybe a 383 or something like that, or if we really got lucky, maybe a Max Wedge under there, through 426. Turned out there was a 440 in there. You can see right away as soon as you open it up and where the intake manifold sits, there's a Boss right there. And all your 426s and 440s have those, including your Hemis, by the way. And so I knew it was at least a 426 or 440 or something. And I couldn't read the date codes there on the side of the block, and it was kind of crusty a little bit. But the interior of the car was a 4-door, which that's kind of a cool sleeper, 4-door car. It had some vintage torque thrust on one side and a mag on one corner, and then it had a kind of a Mopar Magnum on the other side, and then some Steelies on the back. And automatic on the, now there's a push button. There was a push button on the dash back in those days, early 60s Mopars. So he converted it to a floor shifter, which is kind of cool. Looks kind of neat. Bench seat. So basically, it's a 4-door car. Now 4-door cars, wagons are extremely popular. 4-door sedans, not so much. That's the least desirable. But for an entry-level vintage car, it's actually not a bad deal because, a family of 4 or 5 can pile in one of those things and go to the car shows. And if you really can, you can trick a car out with some nice tires and wheels and make it look kind of cool. So while I was rummaging around in the stuff, I went into the building, But as I was walking into the building on the right side, there was a straight axle laying there with some brakes and drums and stuff like that. And I thought, okay, well, maybe there's somewhere around here there's a street rod or going to be a street rod. I walked inside. Stuff was everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I tell you, really, I almost felt as if I needed a snake bite kit to walk around in there. And but the first thing that caught my eye over in the corner was a big block Mopar sitting on an engine stand. But as I walked into the building, there was a painting on the side of the building that was yellow. It was like an arrow, and it said Mopar. So I knew the guy was a Mopar guy. And I saw a 3-speed transmission sitting in a bucket, or not in a bucket, in a wheelbarrow, and some other miscellaneous loose parts. And then there was a bell housing in there. There was a set of big block, could have been 906 castings, which is what, 68, 69, 70, I think, or 70, 69, 70, 71 Mopar. They're better heads for 440s. I think there were 906 castings, if I remember correctly. I think there was an automatic sitting there. It might have been a 727. I'm not sure because it was kind of like buried underneath. And there was a whole bunch of loose parts. There was Studebaker parts. There was Mopar parts. There was an aluminum intake manifold for a 440 sitting right there. But the one thing that I didn't see right away, but the guy saw it, it was sitting right in the window, and I couldn't believe I missed it, was a dual quad tunnel ram with the snorkel, with the air box sitting on top of it. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? So I walked over, looked at it, checked the carbs on it, and they're 4777s, which are basically 750 Hollies. Dual feed double pumpers. There's actually 3 of those laying around there. So I'm assuming that was, well, all right, let me go. And then outside there was a set of slicks mounted on some steel wheels. So the lady and her friends, they were in there, and we were kind of like looking through the cars and stuff. Or the parts. And then there was another building that I walked into. There was kind of like an outdoor shed. And I opened it up, and there was just more boxes of stuff. But the thing that caught my eye was this box that looked like it had some mufflers in it. I didn't have my glasses on. The guy behind me, his name was Joe, by the way. And so he was the boyfriend of one of the neighbors. And so I call him Boyfriend Joe. So Boyfriend Joe was there, and he goes, Purple Hornies. And I go, what? And then I put my glasses on real quick, and sure enough, they were. Now, they were modern versions of it, because they had what's that thing? They have a barcode on the box. Okay, so they're fairly recent. Now, I ran Purple Horny header mufflers, which is what they were back in the day, which basically, if you had headers on your car, you had a collector, and then you can bolt what we called header mufflers, which was just a big, giant glass pack, basically, on the end of your header flange. And now the thing about Purple Hornies is you could actually take them apart, pull the guts out of it, and then put it back together. And they jumped out right about underneath your front seat, depending on how long. They were like 3 feet long, 2.5 feet long, something like that. And so I ran those back in the day. So I immediately got a kick out of that. And I said, well, now there's something I might be interested in. And because back in the 70s, if you guys recall, those of you that are old enough, it wasn't uncommon for you to roll up there and there's a Mopar or a Ford or a Chevy or something like that, and it pulled up beside you and it's going blah, 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 blah. And it was just loud and nasty, just really cool with a Lopey cam and everything like that. That's just the way it was back then. Today, we have to put up with these annoying tuner cars with 4 cylinders that basically sound like sewing machines that are just going to wind up and go bing, and fart cans on the end of it. But I mean, these, back in our day, we had real V8s, real exhaust, and they were loud. And yes, they were obnoxious too. And you couldn't hear your stereo. So when I had my Purple Hornies on there, so that was cool. It was to try to have the loudest car. I did get nailed by Mr. Johnny Law, and he pulled that decibel gun out on me and wrote me a violation. Said he gave me a warning. And then I had to go home and put the stuffing back in my Purple Hornies. But that was just kind of cool. Now, what I kind of deduced from this whole thing is that basically his 4-door sedan was going to be basically like a sleeper. So there's a way to market this stuff, and this is where I'm going with this, is you kind of package things. So you got the 2 wheels. They're not really like you could put the torque thrust on the front, and because he had 2 of them, but they were 6-inch wide ones, or 5.5, 6-inch wide. You could put those on the front of the Mopar, or what I was trying to figure out is when I saw the Studebaker and then the straight axle, I got to thinking, you know what, this guy was probably going to build a gasser. So that's what the straight axle was for. And then the 3-speed Mopar, which that's typical back in the day. You would have ran a 3-speed because you didn't have, particularly in the 50s and 60s, like I didn't have 4 speeds. They were expensive back then. They still are. And so then I would have put the steel wheels with the slicks on the back, maybe on the Polara, or you could have put them on the other car. But what you do is you package it. And then what you do is you get everything all nice and neatly grouped. And this is what I suggested to the lady. And if she needs some help, let me know. And as we get into this, I might let some of you guys know. And because obviously this stuff is for sale because she's not going to do anything with it. She needs to sell it. And but there's a lot of cool stuff there. So like I said, at first when I got there, I thought, when I got the call, I thought we got a couple $1,000s worth of junk. But really, there's a lot more there. The Studebaker's in pretty good shape. I mean, the floors have some holes in them, but the body is pretty decent. Even the four-door sedan Polara is pretty decent. You got two 440 motors. You got a manual transmission and a bell housing and some goodies there. And then you got a 727 sitting there, or something. I doubt it's a 904 because that's a small one. And then just a whole litany of parts. Not to mention there were some vintage signs, not too much in the way of that, but there was vintage tuning equipment and machining equipment because this gentleman was a machinist. So there's like a little milling machine there and some other stuff and a welder and pressure cleaners and just all kinds of and tools, just boxes and boxes of tools. So just really, really, really cool stuff, really, really neat. And but I'll keep you guys kind of in the loop on that as this thing progresses, but, then I did a 34 Ford fiberglass street rod for a lady. Now, granted, we just came off Barrett-Jackson this past week, which ended, and then Scottsdale Collector Car Week, and a couple of weeks ago we had Meekum. So the market now is stronger than I've ever seen it in all the years that I've been in the business. So it's pretty, pretty, pretty strong. And I think on that note, Bobby's going to fire up the stereo. We're going to pay a commercial, then I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about the 34 Ford and about 71 Chevelle and about some of the other cars that I've looked at here in the last couple of weeks on 70 Mach 1. So, hey, you're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Since Dave Mason is going to be in concert at the Capitol Theater about 5 blocks from here this weekend on Saturday, we're going to play a little Dave Mason. I think he played with Jimi Hendrix. He was originally with Traffic. He actually did the original. He was a guitarist, backing guitar on the original All Along the Watchtower with Jimi Hendrix. But this is his version, and I think this is one of the best versions of All Along the Watchtower, written actually by Bob Dylan, right, Bobby? Mm-hmm. Okay, hey, you tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
There's too much confusion, yeah. I can't get no relief. Restless men may drink my wine, while men dig my earth. None of them are along the line. Nobody's on anywhere. No reason to get excited. Don't give me kindness more. There are many here among us now who feel like life is but a joke. But you and I, we've been through that. And this is not our fate, no. So let us not talk falsely now, 'cause the hour's getting late. All along the watchtower, princess kept the view. But all the women came and went, their foot servants too. Outside in the distance, a white captive ground. Two riders were approaching, and the wind began to howl.
Looking for car shows? Then look no further than FLACarshows.com. On your computer or on your mobile device, FLACarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLACarshows.com.
You may be owed some money. After 911 and 411, call 541. That's 727-541-1741. Call Gulfstream Motorsports for a diminished value report. Due to my 28 years experience in the auto salvage business, I'm very good with wrecks. So if your car's been involved in a wreck, call me for a diminished value report. Call 727-541-1741. You may be owed some money for the lost value of your repaired vehicle. And visit us at GulfstreamMotorsports.com.
Cobra, pure engineering, honed and fired in the white hot of competition. All new Screamer added to the line for 1969. Torino Fire and Flare at a Fairlane price. Big scorching Cobra 428 standard with the Cobra Jet Ram Air 428 optional. Special Cobra decals on the front fenders and lower back panel. Special blackout grille. And everything else you'd expect to find on a going thing like this in the way of hardware. Competition type hood lock pins. Special performance tires and suspension. With 4 on the floor standard. Cruise-o-matic optional. And all of this available with a choice of 2 roof lines. Sports Roof Cobra. Hottest thing on the road with a price to match. Torino GT Sports Roof. Cobra Sting with a more sophisticated flavor. Lean, sleek wraparound of welded steel. Now available with all the action appeal of the Cobra. All the styling, sophistication, and luxury appeal of Torino.
Okay, we're back and tune into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Now, you know, about a few years ago, I actually appraised a 69 Cobra. And, of course, generally when you hear Cobra, you think of the little Shelby AC Cobra, the little aluminum body car that started out as a little AC Bristol from England. Well, at any rate, and I stood corrected because when I did this appraisal, I actually found it. So Alan, who's listening, and any other Ford guys, including my buddy down in South Florida, Nelson there, they're Torino guys. And so we say Torino Cobra, but it's really not. The Torino came with a Cobra Jet engine, or a Fairlane came with a Cobra Jet engine, but then there was a specific model that was the Cobra. It wasn't Torino Cobra, it wasn't Fairlane Cobra. It was a Torino or Fairlane Cobra Jet powered car, but there's actually a Cobra. So I probably knew that back in the day, but I probably forgot. But anyway, I was enlightened in it. So I thought it would be kind of cool to play that commercial, not to mention the GTO one we played earlier in the show. And so like I said, you know, you kind of learn things, you kind of forget things, and then you relearn it again. The other cars that another car that I'm appraising is another one owner, 1970 Ford Mustang Mach 1. And this gentleman bought the car brand new, ordered it, didn't quite get what he wanted, so they dealer located this car out of Jacksonville and then bought it new at Grant Ford in 1970. The production date on it was October of 69, and it's medium metallic blue interior, Mach 1, legit car, 351 Cleveland 4-barrel, so it's an M code with air conditioning, but an automatic. And just a really, really nice car. And it's, the market, like I said, is just really, really, really strong right now. I mean, my friend was out in Scottsdale on a 1971 429 Super Cobra Jet Mustang, and that really pretty, it's kind of like, I think it's light grabber green, but they made a grabber green metallic, which is a Z code, and then there was a light, kind of like a little bit lighter green, kind of a chartreuse. 230,000 is what it hammered at. So figure the juice on top of that, you're at 250. That's mind blowing. Boss 302s and Meekum were bringing close to 200. Boss 429s are back up around, over 400. Mopars, the same thing, rare Camaros. But then again, they're paying, for a GTO convertible, one sold for $1 million, certain Mopar sold for $1 million. So where, you were trying to figure this out here a little bit. It's just like mind blowing numbers. So if you're going to sell something, now the parts aren't bringing crazy, stupid money, but the cars definitely are. And so now's the time to sell if you're going to sell. And if you don't sell now and the market does decide to taper off towards the latter part of the year, we're getting older, us guys that are into those, now there's the 10 years, 10, 15 year behind us. There's a lot of those guys are into those cars yet too, because they were influenced by, us, just like we were influenced by the older generation that are not collecting those cars as much anymore. So it's hard to say. You can't. I'm not clairvoyant. I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't really see the future. But I'm just saying right now it's just a really, really crazy market. So if you were thinking about getting the herd, this might be a good time to do that. And then the rest of the stuff, as in my case, and many other guys, probably going to die with it. Unless Bobby comes along and does something intelligent with it. I don't know. He likes cars, so we're good. I'm good there. I just have too many parts, don't I, Bobby? But back in the day, we just bought a spare, and then we couldn't find it. We bought another spare and couldn't find that, and then you bought another spare. Next thing you got 3, 4, 5, 6 spares. So I guess the duplicates, triplicates, quadruplets, and whatever, sell a few of the extras and then narrow it down to the ones you need. If you have the car, you should always have at least 1 or 2 sets of everything. And so where I'm going with this story is, so that was a really, really pretty Mach 1, nicely restored. But, he's got as much in the restoration as what the car's worth. By comparison, I'm doing a very rare 107. This is actually a car I chased for 20 some odd years. 7428 Super Cobra Jet drag pack Cougar convertible. Now that car, it's hard to say. You got a Trans Am, they made 6 Trans Am convertibles. So they're pulling close to $1 million. You got Hemi Cudas that are pulling anywhere between $1 million and $2 million. Very rare car, 1, 6, 7, 8. You got this car, which is a Cougar, which is beautifully restored. So is it worth $300,000? Is it worth $500,000? Is it worth $750,000? Is it worth $1 million? What's it really worth? You don't know until you put it out there. Now these other cars obviously have a strong following, but what really attracts people is rarity, uniqueness. This Cougar, this Super Cobra Jet 4-speed convertible Cougar, is the Mac Daddy of Cougars. That is it. Just like the Boss 429 is a holy grail. Is a 69 worth more than 70? Is a 70 worth more than 69? No. They made more 69s, but the first 279 have the NASCAR motor in it, or allegedly the special S motor. Those are the big ones. Those are bringing $500,000, $600,000. The rest of them are 3 and 4s. 70s are 3, 3.5. 69 still worth more. It's got like a 70 Mach 1 is a beautiful car. 70 Boss 302 is a beautiful car. 69 Boss 302 is a nice car. 69 Mach 1 is a really good looking car. So, just like the Torinos. Do you like a 70, 71 Torino? Do you like a 72 Torino? Do you like a 70 GTO or 71 or 72 GTO? 68 GTO, 69 GTO? A 68 Roadrunner or GTX? 68, 69 Charger? So the 68 to 72 cars are by far the most popular. 70 all around was the best looking of all the cars. 1 year only. Actually, 69 was pretty good too. So 69, all the cars across the board, and 70, all the cars across the board were pretty good looking cars. And the 70s pretty much, I think, hold it. Just like a Trans Am and a Z28, 70s. So that's just like a short dissertation. Okay, so here today I was out scrounging around looking for some parts. And so, like I said, a couple days ago, I ran in this one-owner Mach 1. So today, I'm over this guy's house, and I'm robbing some parts off a junk Ford Explorer that I need for a little Ford Sport Track. power seat assembly or something like a conversion deal. Okay, well, while I was in there helping the guy with the tools, there was a 71. Well, I walked up. It was either 71 or 72 Chevelle sitting there. So that's kind of cool. I said, "Is that what it is? 71, 72?" He said, 71. I said, "That's kind of neat." I said, "Is it a real SS?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, because it had the Z28 style 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, the Z28 style wheels on, which was an option on 71, 72, maybe 70. I don't remember. I think it was available in 70. Anyway, as I take a deep breath, that was a pretty nice looking car. And I said, as we were wrenching off the rest of the junk parts, I walked back in there and took another look at it. And I said, "This is a pretty car." I said, "So what's the story on it?" He bought it new. His wife bought it new, actually. His wife bought it new. And that's pretty cool. She's a keeper. I opened the door, and it's a factory 4-speed car, bucket seat console with attack and gauges. Now, women are not notoriously gearheads, but this one was kind of into cars. Now, I had a friend way back when, and her boyfriend had I knew the kids, and the older sister had a boyfriend who had a 67 SS 396 4-speed Chevelle, which was 66, 67 Chevelles back in the day were pretty popular. It's no different than a Goat, Fairlane, and so on, and Mopars as well. And so when she went to go get a car, he talked her into buying an SS Nova with a 350 and a factory 3-speed. I don't know why they didn't get a 4-speed. I guess this car just happened to be on the lot. And I'll never forget, it was a blue car. And her name was Nancy, and she was pretty cool. And she could hammer those gears because he could hammer those gears. He taught his girlfriend that. And that was pretty cool. So anyway, this Chevelle is in a factory black car, bought new up in New York, 4-speed, bucket seat console, tack and gauge car with a 285 or under 300 horse 350 Chevrolet with a 12-bolt. And I thought, how cool is that? And where I'm going with this whole thing is that the car wasn't restored. It was reconditioned, which is what you really should do. Just take it. The interior was original in it. The undercarriage was original. Just kind of make the car look nice. Put a nice paint job on it. Fix what needs to be fixed. Drive it and have fun with it. Because when you get tens of thousands of dollars in the car, you're not going to get that out of it unless the car is extremely, extremely rare, as in the case with this Super Cobra Cougar. Okay, because the rest of the cars, or if you bought a Boss 429, like a friend of mine paid $175,000 for a really bad basket case. Well, he's going to have $100,000 in that car or more. So, and I'm just throwing an arbitrary number out because it just seems like 100,000 is the magic number. So he's got 175 plus 100. He's going to be 275 all in, and he's still going to have a $300,000, $250,000 car. So he's okay because there's value there. But you can't be buying, kind of a nice car that's a little bit more on the common side, and then restore it and put a ton of money into it and then think you're going to get that money out of it, unless you're just doing it because it's a labor of love and you love the car and you want it as nice as you can. But then what happens? You get a car that's too nice and you can't drive it. And then you go, well, I guess I might as well sell it. And that's kind of a bad thing. But so going back to the Studebaker and the Dodge Polara, you just fix those cars up, you scuff them, you shoot them, or you give them the old school hot rod look to them, the poor boy thing. And the same thing with the Stud, you could jack that thing up like and stick it together as a gasser. No matter what you do to it, and it's going to look cool. I did a guy here in Largo had a Henry J that he bought out of a barn in Nebraska or someplace like that, someplace in the Midwest, or maybe it was Arkansas. I'm not sure. Not Wyoming. It was either Nebraska or Oklahoma or one of those states. And his goal was to just build a gasser out of it. And in fact, there's a few of them on Facebook right now. And all he did is just scuff it, shoot it, put it in primer, put a nice set of wheels and tires on it, a nice set of seats on it. The rest of the car was just an edgy old race car. But it was cool. When you roll into a car show, when you roll into a gas station, you roll into it with something really weird, people run to that because the car immediately has a story. You roll in there with a beautifully restored Mach 1 or a beautifully restored Chevelle, and you're going to get attention as well. So it's a matter of preference, but you don't have to spend a ton of money to have fun at this. You can just slap something on the car and make it look cool. And, I'm kind of a survivor, barn find, edgy kind of car guy kind of thing, granted I have some original stuff. And, but it's just a true car enthusiast appreciates the car for what it is and the story associated with it. And And that's pretty much my story. Bobby, do we have another song queued up here?
We do. We have some Bachman Turner Overdrive to take us to our guest.
Bachman Turner Overdrive. Now, Randy Bachman of Bachman Turner Overdrive and the Guess Who is going to be at the Villages in a couple weeks. Jerry Beckley and Dewey from America is going to be in Melbourne in a couple weeks in February. And like I said, Dave Mason is going to be in right here in Clearwater in our own backyard. And then the Doobie Brothers, I think they're coming to Tampa in March. So we have some really cool classic bands that are going to show up here. And so we're looking forward to that. Maybe we can, obviously we always try to reach out to those guys, see if we can get them in on the show some way, somehow, or form. That's, of course, last week we were lucky we had Kerry come in from next door. And that was pretty cool. He had some great stories. Stories is really what radio is all about. You can't really see me unless you're tuned into this little computer thingy here, but you can listen to me. So my job as a interviewer or a show host is to try to keep the show informative, somewhat entertaining, and
and then play a song when you run out of things to say.
On that note, we're going to play a little BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive. Hey, you're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Here's Blue Collar. This goes out to all us working guys that work on cars and wrench on the weekends. As you're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars, don't touch that dial. I'll be right back.
And I walk mine, and should we meet, would you spare me some time? 'Cause you should see my world, meet my kind, before you judge our minds. Blue collar. Sleep your sleep, I'm awake and alive. I keep late hours, you're 9 to 5. So I would like you to know I need the quiet hours to create this world of mine. Blue collar. I'd like you to know at 4 in the morning things are coming to mind. All I've seen, all I've done, those I hope to find. I'd like to remind you that 4 in the morning my world is very still. The air is fresh under diamond skies, makes me glad to be alive.
Sounds pretty good. Can I see the guitar?
You play?
I've been known to.
That's cool.
What's your name? It's on your guitar.
Since 1873. Original Coors, pure and simple.
This is Keith Martin, publisher of Sports Car Market and American Car Collector, and you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
All right, we're back. You're tuning into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. It's time to introduce our guest for the evening. This gentleman is the director of the Naples Car Auction, if I said that correctly. I'm delighted to welcome to the show this evening, Dan Ridopecki. Did I pronounce that right, Dan?
You did. You did well. Yeah. So Naples, we're the Naples Motor Car Auction, part of the Naples Automotive Experience. Used to be Cars on Fifth. So.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I said, yeah, you did great. Rid of Becky, it was fun the first day of school. So
okay.
Very impressed.
Why don't you give us a little background on yourself? Let our listeners familiarize themselves with you. So the floor is yours.
So a couple of years ago, I started working with Saratoga to put together an auction. The Saratoga Automobile Museum does an annual car auction. It's their largest fundraiser to sort of help fund the museum, the education program. So we're in our 6th year of that. So I got involved a couple of years ago, and we've expanded it. We were invited down to Naples to do an auction with the Cars on Fifth experience. So essentially what that is Thursday night, there's a jetport party. We're the auction component on Friday. This is all this week. Saturday is Cars on Fifth, so over 700 cars on Fifth, all makes, primarily Ferraris, but it's expanded into Lamborghinis and Mustangs and McLarens and, Pontiacs and Cobras, and you name it, it's there. So it's quite the event. And at the end of the day, it's all to raise money for a local charity called St. Matthew's House. So we're happy to help, and we're happy to be able to raise some money for folks in need.
Okay, so tell us about the St. Matthew's charity organization. What is that all about?
So St. Matthew's was started many years ago by 4 Christian ladies because they saw somebody eating out of a dumpster, and they felt that, how could this be at this time in life and in Naples? So essentially St. Matthew's House was put together to help the homeless, and then it's expanded into helping folks with addiction problems. It takes care of battered women, and, they have an amazing program to help folks in need, and it's very successful. And so we're happy to help and be able to raise some money so that they can continue with their mission.
Excellent. Excellent.
And then the rest of the proceeds go to the Saratoga Automobile Museum. So,
give us a little background on yourself now. You and I talked a little bit earlier, but for our listeners, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved, and your automotive background, so to speak.
So I've from the age of 5. My father was a Mercedes trained tech in Europe, and came to the States in the 80s during the gas crisis, a diesel mechanic for Mercedes. So I've always been kind of in the car world. Went off to college and came back and kind of got involved in the business, and we kind of expanded it to take care of, vintage cars. So we had a local collector that had a huge collection. So we were able to take care of his Aston Martins, his Jaguars, his Healeys, and we kind of expanded into that business, built a full service shop where everything was done in-house, from the mechanical work to collision to restoration. And then that kind of segued into the car business. So for years, we would trade. I'd be on the road, primarily buying Audis, but also, in those days, we bought and sold quite a few 911s and F355s. We've continued with Aston. The DB9 is one of our favorite modern cars, as is the Vantage. A lot of car for the money. And, when serviced properly and gone through it, it's not the nightmare that, some people think it could be from an expense standpoint.
Now, it's funny.
And then a couple of years. Yeah,
go ahead. No. Well, I was just going to touch on the Aston Martin Vantage. And the only reason I said that is because that car was kind of developed during the time when Ford owned Aston Martin. How much of the American car, I don't want to say Mustang necessarily, but how much of an American car platform is the Aston Martin Vantage as well as the DB9 are they based on?
They're not. I mean, it's interesting. So I think the DB9 was an Ian Callum design.
Okay.
The 12-cylinder variant, I don't remember who made it. I mean, I think it was Aston's deal. There wasn't a whole lot of crossover with Ford and Ford parts. So I don't know that they had much of an influence. I think everything had kind of been R&D'd and developed by the time Ford got involved. So, a lot of, I don't know that there was that much Ford technology, like I said, in those cars.
All right. How about Jaguar? Because Jaguar is very similar. The XK series that they had back then.
It is. I mean, I'll tell you something funny. So if you look at an ignition coil on a DB9, it looks like a Ford part number, right?
Yeah.
But if you try to put it in as a Ford part number, it doesn't come up. You have to get the stuff from Aston. It's kind of weird. We always thought there'd be some crossover, but, not the case. So it's interesting, right? That, a lot of that stuff was kind of standalone. I think in Jaguar, I think with the S-Type and X-Type, you saw a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
Not so much in the XJ series.
Okay. Now, I will tell you that the Vantage, I think, is the Aston Martin bad boy hot rod. That's probably the closest competitor to a 911, me being a 911 guy kind of. But I always thought, an Aston Martin would be just a really good V8, 6-speed, just a cool looking car. Nice wheelbase, very good stance, and an excellent looking profile.
You're spot on with that. When they developed that Vantage, in I think it was 2007 was the first year that it came out. That car with a V8 manual gearbox, it was optioned out a little bit nicer than a 911. So I would think like maybe 3 cows or 4 cows died in like upholstered interior of that car between all the leather and the Alcantara. But I think that was the core market they were going after, right? They were going after the 911 driver, and it was designed for that. So it's interesting that you put that together. I mean, the car handles really well. It's fast. It's nimble. It's comfortable. I think it's very well designed.
Yeah, and it's a good-looking car. They still make that body style today, and I guess it's one of the few cars that you can still get with a manual transmission in it.
It is, and and that's kind of the appeal. Now I think they have a merger with Mercedes, so I think that the engine comes from Mercedes, and a lot of the does as well. But I think in those early years, it was mostly Aston. I know that like the navigation system was like a derivative of Volvo, I would say. And like the key fobs, if you like looked at them underneath, they were Volvo key fobs. They said Aston on top.
Interesting.
So I would say that might have been the more the influence, but not so much Ford. But a spectacular car. And one of the things I love about those cars, they're such a tremendous value. To be able to buy a DB9 in like the $40,000-$50,000 range, and Vantages kind of trade, in a similar world, mid 40s, 50 grand. It's a lot of car. In fact, we have 2 of them in our auction. I think we have a 10,000 mile green Vantage convertible, and then I think we have like a 35, 40,000 mile black on black manual gearbox Vantage. So a couple of interesting cars.
So what's the schedule for the auction then? So for our listeners, if they want to kind of drive down and take a look at it.
So we start checking tomorrow. We'll be checking cars in tomorrow and Thursday. We hope that by 3 o'clock we have everything lined up. So from 3 to 5 on Thursday, you can come preview what's there. You're more than welcome to come out, even on Thursday during the day, because we will be loading cars. You can also preview Friday morning. We open at 9, and the auction starts at noon. It's slated to start at noon, obviously, and probably goes to like 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Okay. And you have how many cars?
We've got right around, I think, 100.
Okay.
I haven't, there's a collection that I need to add that Molly's working on that kind of came in last minute. And it's interesting how it's always, hey, can I get my car on the auction, or is it too late? So we're kind of scrambling to fit in, 4 or 5 more.
Okay.
But I would say a solid 100. And then also memorabilia. So a lot of signage, a couple of vintage gas pumps, one done in like the Gulf livery, another one with Ferrari style and livery. A lot of old, I'm a loss for words, but the vintage signs that are, enamel, the metal signs. So
right.
A lot of, and we also have a lot of rock and roll posters that we're trying to put together this year. We thought it'd be kind of a cool addition and would go well in an effort to decorate a man cave or a garage.
Excellent. So people can bid online as well, right?
Correct. We're set up. If you set up to bid, if you bid online, it's through proxy bid. If you want to register to bid and you're afar, we'd say call us, register to bid as a phone bidder. And that way we can get you on the phone and bid live for you. It's 3% less expensive on the commission to do so, and you're bidding live. There's a bit of a delay sometimes on proxy bidding online.
All right. How much does it cost to get into the auction if I want to view?
If you want to view the cars, it's for free. To sign up to bid, I think is $250 before the auction, $300 day of auction, and I believe there are a limited number of spectator tickets that sell for $100.
Okay. And if people want to find out more about it, where do they go?
If you go to NaplesMotorCarAuction.org, that will link you to the page, or even SaratogaAutoAuction.org. It flips to our Saratoga sale.
Okay.
So I would say that's your best bet.
When's the Saratoga sale?
So normally the Saratoga sale is the 3rd to 4th week of September.
Okay.
So this year it was September 24th and 25th. So that was a great sale. We have a new venue, lots of space, really well done. So we're looking to expand on that. And then once that's over, we wrap up and head south to Naples for the winter.
Okay.
Put this on.
Now we got about 20 seconds left. How about the Saratoga Museum? If people want to find out more about that, where do they get information?
So SaratogaAutomuseum.org. We have an amazing Bond exhibit right now, Bond in Motion, which features essentially, I think, 15 of the cars in a variety of James Bond movies. So, for example, DB5, we have the DBS that rolled 8 times to get it to look the way it did in Casino Royale. The Z8, the 7 Series. We have the Lotus Submarine. We have the XK Jaguar with the gun in the back. So it's an awesome exhibit. If anybody loves cars and Bond, you can't miss it. And that goes for a while. I think it goes through November of next year. So well worth a trip.
Super. Well, Dan, I want to thank you for hanging out with us here at Nostalgic Radio and Cars. I wish you guys all the best of luck. If I can make it down there, I'll make it down there. And then, maybe we'll have you back in the fall and we'll talk a little bit about the Saratoga event. And
that would be awesome.
I also want you to share some stories about the Jim Taylor collection, because I know you were involved in that. And he had some pretty amazing cars. And I know Jim a little bit, or knew him back, so now he's probably scaled it down to a little bit, but I'm sure he's got some really cool car stashed.
Yeah, I think he scaled it down to about 14, 15 cars. I mean, the majority of the cars went. And, truly, it's hard to – he was one that had, I think, every car was registered and insured, and he drove. But I think it's hard to drive all that stuff. So I think he kind of picked his favorites. He's held on to those. And I think, the rest he passed on for somebody else to enjoy.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing collection, amazing sale. Broad Arrow did a great job. It was a great event in New York in October of this year. So great collection of cars.
Well, Dan, thank you very much. My special guest, Dan Ridopecki, from the Naples Motor Car Museum or the Saratoga Motor Car Museum and the Naples Motor Car Auction, right?
Got it.
Okay. You take care, and I'll probably see you at Amelia.
Sounds like a plan, Robert. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Hey, I want to thank all my listeners for tuning into Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Again, some great stories, a super guest, and you know where to look, and some spectacular music. So hopefully we'll see you out there on the road, some of your cool cars. Don't forget, there's a lot of driving to do, a lot of car shows, a lot of events, a lot of this. And the Vintage Truck Show at the Sumter County Fairgrounds is the 17th and 18th of next month. Vintage truck, really cool vintage trucks. Be sure and be there. Check that out. And you never know, we might have some ticket giveaways. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, drive carefully, and love your family.
To the other side, bring on to the other side, bring on to out. Oh yeah! Rain to see, week to week, day to day, hour to hour, day straight, deep and wide. Bring on to the other side. Bring on to the other side. Bring on to, bring on to, bring on to, bring on to.
WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyrhills.
FM 104.3.
Listen.
A massive winter storm from Texas to Kentucky.
Now we're dangerous.
Embattled Congressman Santos steps down from 2 committees.
I think it was an appropriate decision.
Alec Baldwin officially charged in fatal set.
Finger on the trigger of the gun.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Jennifer Kuiper in Chicago. An ice storm stretches from Texas to Kentucky. There have been numerous crashes in Austin, Texas, with at least 2 deaths reported. More from CBS's Matt Piper.
The Dallas area is seeing waves of freezing rain, sleet, and snow, and an ice storm warning has been issued for the morning in some suburbs.
I woke up this morning and the streets are white, the lawn was white, and it's brutally cold.
Mike Dacko lives in Duncanville, south of Dallas.
It's been warm for the past couple months in North Texas, but over the last 24 hours, the temperature has dropped significantly.
At Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, flight tracker FlightAware says more than half of today's scheduled flights have been canceled. Matt Piper, CBS News.
In Memphis, Tennessee, business owner Paige Garland.
Downtown businesses don't tend to fare very well when the ice hits because we're the first to freeze and the last to thaw.
As scrutiny grows for embattled U.S. Congressman George Santos, he says he's stepping back from part of his job on Capitol Hill. CBS's Scott McFarland.
Republican George Santos says he's recusing himself from the two U.S. House committees on which he was seated, the House Small Business Committee and the House Science and Space Committee. He says he doesn't want to be a distraction and wants to focus on his constituent services in New York's 3rd District.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy adds,
The voters have elected him. He'll have a voice here in Congress, and until he answers all those questions, then at that time, he'll be able to be seated on committee.
Actor Alec Baldwin and a weapons specialist have been formally charged with involuntary manslaughter in the fatal shooting of a cinematographer on the New Mexico set of the movie Rust. CBS's Chris Van Cleve reporting.
These charging documents tell us that there was some video and photos taken in the moments leading up to this shooting as they were rehearsing this scene. And in that video, in those pictures, prosecutors say they saw multiple places where Baldwin had his finger on the trigger of the gun. And FBI forensic review of that gun, that Colt 45, showed the trigger had to be pulled for it to be fired. That contradicts what Baldwin has been saying, that he didn't pull the trigger, that the gun went off.
Baldwin and weapons supervisor Hannah Gutierrez Reed maintain their innocence and vow to fight the charges. Vice